So I've made quite a few dolls so far, but I was thinking I could probably make some kind of structure from Hollow Knight. But there's so many. But then, after a while of thinking, I got it. The almighty bench. I think you can tell someone has gotten to the point of boredom when they just make a literal bench. Since I want this bench to be able to fit all my dolls on it, I'll be using Coral to size everything as opposed to the Knight because Coral is one of the few NPCs we see sitting on the bench. Now on to the actual thing. I'm going to start out by making the base for the seat. So I measure it out, then cut those lengths out of a strong wire. I'm also going to be using the same wire to make the legs, and I start wrapping those around each other at the corners. I'm going to be using hot glue to hold the corners together, but this is only to hold them together until I can get clay on them. It is not a strong final solution. I'm going to try to work carefully while I put the clay on the armature because I don't want it to break off at the corners. While it's still drying, I stick the armature for the legs into the clay and hot glue them on in place, just so I have a base to work on. After the armature for the legs are in place, I do the same thing and wrap clay around them in a pretty messy first pass, but it doesn't have to be pretty since I'll be going over this again. Now that the bottom part is done, I'm going to start working on the armature for the top part. I measure out a thinner length of wire, twice as much as I need, so I can twist it around. Then I hot glue that onto the base and cover it with clay. This is a pretty repetitive process, but I still did focus really hard on it, as you can see with my head popping into frame in a second. Yeah, somehow it still turned out pretty lumpy, but it's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect because the kingdom's kind of falling apart anyway, so it fits right in. The back part of the chair, like the actual design, really sucked to make. I didn't actually record the whole process. I recorded like 6 of it. But after the 6th, just know that I repeat that like 6 more times. And then after I peel it off, I brush a few layers of glue on it just to strengthen it up because these are pretty thin pieces of clay that are gonna break super easily. And the last thing I want would be for the backing to fall apart the instant I put a doll on it. After the layers of glue have dried, I size it into the base and then stick it in and glue it up. Like a lot of glue. I do not want this falling out because if it does, I get the feeling that it will shatter. To back up the glue, I also put some clay around the weaker bits since there were also some gaps. For the seat part of the bench, I'll be using these popsicle sticks that I cut the ends off of and then cut to various lengths to fit onto the bench. I hot glue it on one side and then put it on the seat to measure to cut off any excess, and then I use hot glue to stick it on, and then after I stick it on with the hot glue, that's just to hold it in place, so I can use some Elmer's glue later and it won't go slipping off. I also use an X-Acto knife to cut in some wood grain, which doesn't actually end up being visible, so I wasted my time here. Just know that I did it, I guess. And then finally, I'm on to painting it. I put down a layer of black first, then I'm going to go over with a metallic black, but since metallic blacks are really thin and liquidy, I thought it would be best to go over the whole thing with a layer of black first. It's also really nice to see all the pieces become one uniform color. Really makes it look almost complete. Here's that metallic black I was talking about. It looks slightly gray on camera, but in the photos and also when the whole thing is painted, it does look like a black like you see here. Then after that, I go over with a glossy varnish and it's done. I wanted to take quite a few pictures for this video, since I did make this bench specifically for these dolls. Also, I made a literal bench. I don't know what I'm doing right now. I haven't run out of ideas, I swear. I just got real bored. See ya!